Welcome back to our Lenten Bible study on the Gospel of Mark. Today we are on day 10 and we are beginning with Mark chapter 3. Okay, a very quick recap. In Mark chapter 1, we see people are in awe of Jesus. Jesus bursts onto the scene, he does miracles, and people are in absolute awe. They're in awe of the way he teaches, they're in awe of the fact that he can heal, they're in awe of the fact that he can exorcise demons, and there is awe among the people. But that awe is without understanding. They have not yet grasped who Jesus is. In chapter 2, we see that Jesus' fame is growing and the awe continues. However, hostilities begin against Jesus. We see Jesus forgives sins and there is hostility. Jesus eats with sinners and there is increasing hostility. And now, from private criticism, they have moved to public questioning. And we will see in Mark chapter 3, as we are reading, that hostility now grows in the open. People are openly against Jesus. There is awe, but there are also those people who are against Jesus. And possibly Jesus is trying to say to us here, once you encounter the authority of Jesus, who Jesus really is, once Jesus begins to reveal himself, he reveals himself as Lord at the Sabbath, then each of us have two choices. You and I have two choices. One, to accept Jesus, or the other, to reject him. There is nothing in between. Okay, having said that, let's go. Mark chapter 3, verse 1. Again, he entered the synagogue, and a man was there who had a withered hand. Like any other regular day, in verse 2, we'll see that this is the Sabbath. There is a man who has come to the synagogue, and possibly he's kept coming here for a long period of time. He comes there, he sits there, he has a withered hand. And the test is this: the man's condition is not life threatening. So, under the Pharisaic law, medical help is allowed to only those who require it in dire emergency, and there is no legal urgency to help this man, and that becomes a test. Will Jesus help him? And you can see those who are plotting against Jesus. In chapter 2, there have been those who are against Jesus, and so now the scribes and Pharisees possibly they're gathered around there. They've seen the man with the withered hand, they have seen Jesus, and now in their mind they're asking this question: what will Jesus do? Will he heal this man on the Sabbath? Because if he does, he is breaking the law that they have set. Okay, verse 2. They watched him to see whether he would cure him on the Sabbath so that they might accuse him. The word, no, they watched him, is not just an ordinary watching. It is literally to hunt someone, to look at someone, to track the person down. It is that kind of looking. And so the word here is a verb that implies hostile surveillance. And so the irony is this: they are going to be accusing Jesus of breaking the law, and yet they themselves are breaking the law by plotting against Jesus on the Sabbath. Verse 3. And he said to the man who had a withered hand, come forward. And he said to them, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill it? But they were silent. We see the smartness and how amazing Jesus really is. Jesus is asking them a trick question. He's not asking them, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath someone who does not have an emergency? And the answer to that question would have been no, it is not lawful. You cannot heal someone on the Sabbath who does not have an emergency. But Jesus is asking them this question: is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil? Is it lawful on the Sabbath to save life or to kill? And now they are silent because they are trapped. Jesus is rejecting the technicalities of the law and is asking a fundamental question: when can somebody do good? And the answer to that is one must do good always. One must never do evil, or one must never avoid doing good. And therefore, Jesus asking this trick question has placed the question before them. And now is their time to answer. And the verse says, but they were silent. And they remain silent because they don't want to answer. Jesus is trying to say very clearly, you either do good or you do evil. There is no middle ground. Refusing to do good is doing morally something that is evil. And so we see that it is a sum zero game. When you have the power to act, when you have the power to do something that is good and you choose to not do it, you choose neutrality, that is a moral failure. Withholding mercy is doing evil. There is no middle ground according to Jesus. Let me give you an example. There was this time where I was walking on the station, and there when I just walked up, I saw a man lying there, and I thought to myself, yeah, must be drunk and must have fallen here, must be sleeping the whole night, living a life irresponsibly. And I walked back and I went home. But when I went home, the Lord never allowed in my heart a peace. And therefore, I could always remember, I could see that man in my mind. And so I waited for half an hour. And I think I told my mother, and she told me, if God has put in your mind, go back. And so I went. I went back, and the man was still lying there. And I picked him up. And as soon as I went to pick him up, a few more people walking there came to help me. And he removed a chit from his pocket and gave it to me. And that had his address on it. And so we went out. There was a rickshaw strike on that day. I had an Activa. I kept him back on the scooter. I kept him on the scooter, and he held me with all his, with all his strength. And everybody was not sure whether this man could sit or fall. And then, as we went ahead, we reached that place. As soon as we reached the gate, the entire building came out because they were looking for him for over 12 hours and they had no clue where this man was. This man got off the bike and he absolutely embraced me. And he said, something in vague words, but it was something like, I have seen God. My dear brothers and sisters, I had done morally evil thing by ignoring to do what was good. Luckily, God pressed on my heart that I needed to go back. And therefore, inaction to do good is morally evil. Those are what we call the sins of omission. Verse number 5. He looked around at them with anger. He was grieved at their hardness of heart and said to the man, stretch out your hand. He stretched out his hand and his hand was restored. Jesus is not angry at their ignorance, in their inability to see who stands before them, the Messiah, but he is angry with their refusal to love. The Greek word here that is used reminds us of Pharaoh. And what happened to Pharaoh? He had hardened his heart when Moses came to speak to him. And because he hardened his heart, he was destroyed. And Jesus' heart is breaking. Jesus is angry because he knows that if they continue to have hardened hearts, they will be destroyed. And that is the same danger that you and I face, the anger of defensiveness. When someone shows us that we are wrong, we want to defend ourselves and not acknowledge our faults. Okay, coming back, Jesus says, stretch out your hand. Now, stretch out your hand. Jesus heals him not with a touch, not by doing something, but by his word. And this echoes Genesis 1. Jesus created through his word. Jesus also restores this man through his word. Next, verse number 6. The Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him. A miracle has just happened. Life has been restored. But instead of joy, there is conspiracy. And the question to you and to me is this: the man who came with a withered hand went away healed, but those who came with a withered heart left with a withered heart. And so, if we have a withered hand, that the Lord can heal. But if we have a withered heart that can no longer accept the grace of God, we are unfortunately permanently set away from the mercies and the goodness of the Lord because we have turned our heart to stone. And so, what does Jesus do? Jesus departs with his disciples to the sea, and a great multitude from Galilee follow him. Hearing all that he was doing, they came to him in great numbers from Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea, beyond the Jordan, and from around the region of Tyre and Sidon. Now, these places are not at random. These are not just within the Jewish territory, they're also places beyond, and shows that the people coming to Jesus are not just Jews. Even those who are non Jews, even the Gentiles now come to Jesus. It also shows that even though opposition intensifies, the plot to kill Jesus is active already in Mark chapter 3. The crowds are undeniable. The authority of Jesus grows. And therefore, there is this great dispute between the authority of Jesus, who Jesus really is, and against those who have already decided that Jesus is a problem. And therefore, we see this great dispute in the Gospel of Mark. Even those who are reading the text, those who are encountering the text for the first time, are yet to decide who is Jesus. Is he the Messiah? If yes, then we give our lives entirely to him. Otherwise, he's a great liar. He needs to be crucified. And therefore, that's a call that we need to take. For he had cured many, so that all who had diseases pressed upon him to touch him. The news of Jesus had so greatly spread that people came from all over the world just to touch him. It also goes against the ancient logic of purity. Under the ancient logic, if something holy comes in contact with something unholy, the holy becomes unholy. But with Jesus, there is so much beauty and so much grace and so much love that even something unholy that comes in contact with Jesus, the unholy would become holy, and therefore they would all come with this great desire, with this great hope that they could touch Jesus. Their hope is our privilege. They had this hope that they would touch Jesus. We have the privilege of every day in the Eucharist not just touching Jesus but also receiving him. Okay, let's go ahead. Verse 13. He went up the mountain and called to him all whom he wanted, and they came to him. Notice, Jesus, even before he does anything, before he appoints the 12, before any important task, he'll go up to the mountain to pray. St. Jerome calls it a theological space. Theology is the study of God, the encounter of God. And so Jesus ascends up the mountain in order to encounter God, to know the will of God before he can do anything important. This also demonstrates that apostolic authority comes from above and not just from any human decision. It's not, I like these 12 people, so I choose. The decision to pick the 12 comes with authority from God. Now, it's also very interesting the number 12. Why did he choose 12? He could have chosen 11, he could have chosen 13, he could have chosen any number. You see, there were 12 tribes of Israel, and therefore the number is very specific and intentional. It's not a random group. It represents the 12 tribes of Israel, the full covenant people. And unfortunately, these sons of Jacob during the Babylonian exile had 10 of the 12 were lost. They had no clue where these 10 were. And the prophets had promised that when the Messiah comes, or God will come and he will regather these all 12 tribes together. The 10 northern tribes which were lost will one day be recounted in the people of Israel. And so we see that Jesus comes along choosing 12. And with Jesus, here begins the restoration of Israel. He's reconstituting Israel. He's not just replacing it. In fact, the prophecy of the prophets is now being fulfilled around Jesus himself. And so the number 12 means the whole people of God. Jesus is regathering and reconstituting Israel, the people of God in himself. Okay, and it says, and he appointed 12, whom he named apostles, to be with him and to be sent out to proclaim the message and also to have authority to cast out demons. We see a threefold purpose here in the calling of the apostles. The first is to be with Jesus. This is the foundation of everything we do in our life. The first thing in the morning is to be with Jesus. Before they would preach, before they would have power, before they would have influence, they had to be in a relationship with Jesus. Even to you and to me, we are called to be evangelizers. We are called to go out there in the world and bring the good news to everyone. But unless we have been with Jesus, we cannot bring Jesus to anybody. Like, I have never seen Nelson Mandela. I have read two books on Nelson Mandela, but I don't know who Nelson Mandela is. And so I can just give you mere information of Nelson Mandela. But you ask me about my dad, I have been with him. He has been with me. We have dined together, we've gone for holidays together, we've done work together. I have learned from him. And therefore, now you ask me who my dad is, I can give you a very, very personal experience of who my father is. And that is what is required. In order to do that, the first thing that the disciples, the apostles, have to do is to be with the Lord. The next thing, that they might be sent out to preach. And so, preaching is not merely a sharing of ideas, but it is announcing to the people that God is here. It is announcing a reality that God is near, that God reigns, that God loves. You see, the world has hundreds of opinions. It does not need any more opinions. It needs the witness of love. And therefore, the second thing that we are sent out to do is to preach. Preach by our words, preach by our actions. Finally, to have the authority to cast out demons. When we have been with Jesus, we will preach love through our words and through our actions, and then we will experience the authority. You see, our mission carries the weight of the entire mission of Jesus. We participate in the mission of Jesus, and we cannot do that without participating in the love of Jesus. And therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, in everything that we do, the first thing that we need to do is to pray, to ask the Lord, to ask our Father to lead us. You know, how often I've begun my meal and realized that I have not said grace before meals, and then I make it grace during meals. But nevertheless, The reason that I forget is because my heart is not always oriented towards God. And that's our calling, to have a heart so oriented towards Him that we seek Him above all things. Well, with that, we come to the end, and tomorrow we shall complete Mark chapter 3. So please continue to read Mark chapter 3. Please also continue to send in your feedback. It is very helpful to us. I hope the pictures on the screen are now long enough for us to respond. Also, please continue praying for children of the 10th and 12th standard exams, 10th and 12th standard, as they are giving the exams. Until we see you till tomorrow, God bless. Have a wonderful Lent, and may the Lord be with you.